Hello, friend. Welcome to this episode. My name is Taylor, and today we are going to explore the possibility that some men could use the practice of semen retention to make more money. This is going to be a really unique episode, and we're going to hear from Caitlin V and Dave Asprey. And I want to give you a little bit of context up front because they're not going to be live, but we're going to be listening to a recorded conversation between the two of them that's actually pretty controversial, at least according to Caitlin. So I just interviewed Caitlin V on my podcast, and she's somebody who, if you've ever looked up anything related to sex on YouTube, you've almost certainly seen a video of hers. She has almost 1 million subscribers. She has millions of views on her videos. One of her top videos is how to make women squirt. There's another one about masturbation hacks for men to last longer in bed. And she's just all over the place. She's a host of a TV show about sex as well. Dave Asprey, you might have heard of him as the father of biohacking. He's also the guy that invented bulletproof coffee. And a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. And when I was interviewing Caitlin, just a couple minutes before our interview started, I looked at her YouTube channel and saw that there was a new video on it with her and Dave. And the title of that video was, and you can see it on your screen right now if you're watching on the YouTube version, it was How I Mastered Sexual Energy and Discipline to Build a $750 million Empire with Dave Asprey. And I thought, holy shit, this is totally different from any of her videos that I've seen before. Usually they're about squirting or pegging or ejaculation or ED or any of these sorts of things. Never have I seen anything about sexual energy, money, transmutation, etc. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. I'm going to ask her about it in the interview. And I wish I had time to watch it beforehand, but I didn't. So I asked her about it in the interview, and she said it was really controversial. And there were a lot of people who messaged her who said, this is bullshit. This is total new age propaganda. This is, all this kind of stuff. And she thought about taking it down, but is leaving it up for what she calls the diversity of ideas. And I'm glad she's leaving it up. Apparently, her team originally titled the episode, How I Earned $750 Million by Not Ejaculating. And that's a little bit more of a provocative title. So what I thought we could do for this episode is we can watch and listen together and react in real time. So I'm going to be watching this for the first time. And for clarity, I've never actually seen anything of Dave Asprey's before. I don't follow him. I have not listened to any of his podcasts, if he has a podcast or anything like that. So this is my first exposure as well. And I'm going to be pausing the video and adding my comments here and there. And if you have any questions or comments, or you want to comment on anything that either of them say, please do so in the YouTube version of this episode as well. And I'll check out your comments and questions. And yeah, let's get into it. Without further ado, we'll start from the beginning and see what happens.
Hi, Dave. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hi, Caitlin.
So I had the opportunity to check out your upcoming book, Heavily Meditated. Thank you so much for sending that over to me. And I was so excited to see such a rich portion of the book going towards sex and sexuality. And my favorite, I also know that you're very close with mentor Jaya. You've spoken on stage before. You've interviewed her before. And so
that's great.
I have a sense of this, but for my audience, I want to know, why was it so important for you to include sexuality in such a big way inside of this book?
In biology, we have core drives, and our body does this in order. And this goes into the biohacking world. But the most important one is let's be safe. Let's not get eaten by tigers, right? That's fear.
Yeah.
And then the next drive is food, which is eat everything. And your body tries to do these things long before you can think about it. And then, why did I eat all the Ben and Jerry's? It's because your body made you do it. Why was I reactive? Because your body made you do it. And the third F word is fucking. Because all biology wants you to do this. And that means that your path is turn fear into peace, turn food into nourishment, and then turn sex or lust into nourishment as well. Heavily Meditated is a book about altered states. You get to choose your state and hold it for as long as you want. One of the most precious states is the one where you can go in, access the control panel settings in your body, and turn off reactive patterns that make you programmable and stop freedom. Well, 20% of people report meeting God during orgasm. And you can't tell because they're just laying there twitching, maybe the way they often do. But they're having a transformative, powerful experience, oftentimes more powerful than LSD. So if I'm going to write Heavily Meditated, which is a complete book of all the technologies and techniques that make meditation faster, or maybe even do the same thing as meditation, how could conscious sex and tantra and conscious kink not be part of the conversation? And I've interviewed Montauk Chia, who's one of the top tantra teachers out there. I've interviewed Jaya, and Kimmy Inch is in the book, who teaches conscious kink. So the idea here is, I'm not judging. You can go through any path you want to access the state that lets you be in charge of your biology. And for a lot of people, like, well, I learned how to eat and I'm less reactive than before, and I'm starving from an intimacy perspective. You want to be at peace? Have conscious sex. So I thought it belonged in a book about altered states, because it is a traditional way of accessing altered states, more traditional than psychedelics.
And
True. Let me just interrupt there and add something. I didn't used to believe that until I had my own first experience of an extended non-ejaculatory orgasm that went on for a long, long time, to the point where it became psychedelic. And mind you, I was completely sober for this, but I remember like the walls were undulating, and I remember seeing sparkles and psychedelic patterns move across the floor, and I thought like, holy shit, like this is real. Like people weren't just making this up. Like there's a reason people have written books about this. It's because like, wow, I'm experiencing, like sex has been so good. I've been orgasming for like 30 minutes and the walls are doing this. Like, holy shit. So just want to say, if any of you are skeptical about that, like I was skeptical too, and I experienced it. It was amazing. I've experienced it since then as well. And it's something that you could also learn how to experience. So let's keep going.
Often say that sex is the one human need that without it, we will not perish, literally, like our heart will not stop beating as it will with air and water and food. But a part of us does die. It doesn't reach an actual level of expression and health and vibrancy in the world if we don't also acknowledge that our sexuality is one of our core human needs, as vital as any other.
100%.
Totally. And I'll add that if we're not experiencing sex, it's true that we won't die, but the species won't die. I mean, the species will die. Excuse me. So there is a gigantic biological motivation to have sex. All right.
So I put it in the book because this is the encyclopedia, although it's more fun to read than an encyclopedia, I like to think. It's the encyclopedia of, here's the techniques available to you to enter the states you want. And one of the most important states is transcendence. And I don't care if you have to have your ankles by your ears to reach transcendence, good for you. And I don't care if you need to go to the jungle and, smoke a bunch of whatever, good for you. And maybe you did both, and maybe you did neither because breath work was your path. This has all the paths laid out, and you're just going to read it and you're going to intuitively know that one, I want that. And you'll feel it in your bones. Actually, you won't feel it in your bones. You'll feel it somewhere else.
You won't feel your bones at all. It's a very judgment neutral, judgment free, morally neutral methodology, right? Like all of these, none of these are any better or worse than the others, but like you have multiple options to get there. And I see what you're saying is that if you have not included sex and sexuality, would have been doing yourself, your readers, everyone who this will touch a great disservice, because it is such a vital and important and ancient path, and one of the original paths to reaching transcendence. Now, on this,
can I just add here too that I think this is one of the greatest failings of the entire personal development and personal growth world, and I'll add yoga workshops, meditation workshops, spiritual workshops, is that they have all these techniques and methodologies out there to help us grow and expand our consciousness and have new perspectives, but they don't touch sex. They don't talk about sex. They don't include sex. And I'm just like, are you fucking crazy? How could you try to do a workshop to try to get to the core of somebody's, I don't know, whatever, and not talk about sex? Like, it's at the very core of who we are as humans. Like, you've got to talk about this. You've got to talk about the shadow. You got to get in there. You got to work with it. So I'm glad that he's including it in this book about human transformation, because it's arguably one of the most impactful, transformative things that we have available to us. All right. So that was a little bit of a soapbox moment. Let's keep going.
This channel, we talk mostly to men, and men specifically who are dealing with some level of performance anxiety. And that can manifest in a lot of ways. It can be a mental thing. It can be a physiological thing in the form of premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction. So a lot of guys are coming to me and they're like, forget transcendence. I just want to perform better in bed. So I'm curious how the book can speak also to them. And, as performance anxiety is just like other forms of anxiety. It is a relationship to fear.
One of the important practices from Taoism that I've written about, even in other books, is around an equation for ejaculation frequency for men. And it's age in years minus 7 divided by 4. And the Taoists say if you want to maintain your health, don't ejaculate more frequently than that number of years. So, for example, if you're
per week,
it's a number of days. So let's say that you're 47. So age in years minus 7, now that gives you 40, right? And then you divide by 4. That's 10 days. So if you're 47, you would ejaculate once every 10 days to maintain your health.
That's a frequency. Got it.
Yeah. And you could.
We'll just interject here and say that there are different branches of Taoism that have different perspectives on this. And there are different branches of Tantra and yogic sexuality that also have different perspectives on this. And I just wanted to add that in there because it's not the case that all Taoists go by that one particular equation, even though that is a relatively useful equation, at least for a benchmark. For myself at age 39, I've found that what I call my ideal ejaculation frequency is once every 10 to 12-ish days. And if I stick in that frequency, then I can live a life that is sustained with higher levels of clarity and motivation and zest and all of that stuff that helps me feel more alive and more inventive and more just on it to create the kinds of things that I want to create in the world. And I imagine we're going to get into that throughout their conversation around the impact of doing this. So yeah, let's keep listening.
Do it less frequently. And they say, if you want to live forever, just ejaculate once every 30 days. And you're like, what? That seems insane. So I published my data for a year, and there's an ejaculation hangover that happens in men. And if you have a problem with this, you should know every time you ejaculate for the next 1 to 2 days, your testosterone levels tank and your prolactin levels go up. And prolactin is what gives you that refractory period where you can't get hard again.
So I'm going to interrupt here because I imagine this is probably one of the places where people are starting to think, oh, this is some woo-woo bullshit right here, because what he just said is not true, actually. Specifically to say testosterone levels and prolactin levels are not substantially impacted the day or two following an ejaculatory orgasm. The research does show that it does impact those things for the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes after ejaculation, maybe up to 2 hours, but not the next day and not the next day. Those two specific biomarkers. So that is untrue, what he just said. But there is research out there that shows that there is actually some form of an impact on male cognition, emotions, and hormonal state change for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days after ejaculation. It's not entirely 100% clear what all that is right now. There's some new research that's just come out in the last year, actually, that speaks to this a little bit more. So there are impacts and there are things that happen. And the ejaculation hangover, the subjective experience of that is real. I experience it too. And those two particular biomarkers I felt like were important to speak to. All right, let's hear what else he has to say.
So if you have sex and you don't ejaculate, well, you're going to get a message from your body, oh my God, I'm going to die. No, you're not. You won't die if you don't ejaculate. You won't die if you skip lunch either. You just feel like you're starving, but you're not. So you learn to feel safe. And if ejaculation is not the goal, what's the goal? Making your partner meet God, right? So it doesn't matter if you actually penetrate her. What matters is go down on her. How many times can you make her come? Right? Mm-hmm. Do that.
Well, and a quick distance.
Well, let me also add here, I'm a big fan of, if ejaculation and orgasm isn't the goal, then make pleasure the goal, make connection the goal, make the exploration of the act of sex itself the goal without seeking orgasm. I don't fully agree with make the goal to have, like, make your partner meet God and give them a bunch of orgasms, because then it makes it goal-oriented. It keeps you in that goal-oriented mindset. And there's such a beauty and a sexiness and just a richness of sex that happens when you and your partner are exploring sex without trying to get to any goals at all. Then all kinds of other doors open up to all kinds of amazing pleasure and orgasmic states, ironically. If you're not seeking orgasm, you can have all kinds of other wild orgasms that kind of sometimes come out of nowhere. All right, let's hear now what Caitlin was about to start speaking to.
Disclaimer, what I teach on my channel is that if you are going to practice any kind of semen retention, it has to be part of a holistic lifestyle. If you are putting a whole bunch of processed foods and alcohol and toxins into your body, and you live in an environment that has a lot of pollution in it, and then you choose not to ejaculate, you're not actually doing much good to your body, right? If anything, you could be doing additional harm to your prostate by not regularly releasing the toxins that your prostate can build up inside of it. So if you already have a healthy lifestyle and you're thinking about the other ones, right, you're nourishing your soul and your body, then you can consider semen retention as a part of your practice.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. He might be about to say it, but none of the esoteric traditions where semen retention came from would ever say, just stop ejaculating and expect your life to change. That's not how it works. Like, semen retention and the intentional circulation of sexual desire, of sexual energy, was seen as part of a holistic lifestyle practice that included things like diet and exercise and social connection and spiritual wellness as well, right? You would never just stop doing one thing and expect the whole package to improve. And they would all say that if you are going to practice semen retention, then you have to practice and learn the skills to be able to circulate this buildup that's going to happen of sexual charge, so it doesn't stagnate in your genitals, so it doesn't cause dis-ease and illness and just feelings of lethargy and blah and just like, whoa, some people say, I haven't ejaculated in 30 days. So you don't get to that point. Like, you have to integrate it. All right, let's keep going.
If you have a super toxic body, even then, the drop in prolactin, or the increase in prolactin and drop in testosterone, it's gonna cost you happiness. So even if you're not perfect in your lifestyle, but you're moving in that direction, what I'm mostly suggesting is, even if you're like, I'm just going to ejaculate once every 3 days, even though the equation would say 7, that's plenty of time. Even once a week is going to keep your prostate clean.
Here's another point where I think he just lost a bunch of people when he said it's going to cost you happiness. Like, that's a reach. That's definitely a reach because it goes into the category of demonizing pleasure. And that sucks. Like, we already have so much of that in society. And this is one of the things I've seen when working with like hundreds of guys, is that guys who go into the realm of semen retention, they can start to demonize ejaculation, start to demonize pleasure, start to demonize orgasm, and start to think like, oh, I'm bad because I had an ejaculatory orgasm, or, oh, I have fucked my life up because I have ejaculated it. Like, no, dude. The shame and the downward spiral of thoughts around it is way worse than your ejaculation. And actually, it's possible to have an ejaculatory orgasm that replenishes you and uplifts you and doesn't leave you feeling depleted. It just takes a little bit of things to learn and practices to do to make that happen, but it's entirely possible. And just to be clear, like, I am very much a fan of ejaculatory orgasms. I think they're great. I think they're a really important and healthy part of being a sexual man. And I think they're important to do at a frequency that is ideal for your age, your lifestyle, etc. And what he just said too, I don't think there's any research to say that if you ejaculate once a week, it clears out your prostate. I could be wrong about that, but I haven't seen that research. All right, let's keep going.
All right. What's really important there is that sex stops being about how quickly can I get there, or even how quickly can I get her there. It's like, okay, I have a partner to play with, right? And you can be like, what? This is a problem. So in Heavily Meditated, I talk about sex as altered states, as sex as a way to get there. And the way you get there is by like, who cares if I come? Who cares if I'm hard or not? What matters is like, I'm touching you there and you're touching me wherever it feels good. And we're just going back. It's play, because it's not goal directed anymore. And what you'll find there is you become much more attuned to your partner. And if you're saying, well, this is impossible because, I'm going to prematurely ejaculate. Well, you go to your partner and you say, hey, I want to try something. I want to try not ejaculating. And for a lot of women, it's like, but if I don't make them come, I didn't do it right. But you're like, I want your help on this. So just trust me, I'm going to desire you even more when we're done here. But I really want this to be about you. And so if you decide that the right thing to do is for me to ejaculate, just let me know. But otherwise, like, I'm going to do my best not to. And it turns out if I'm in charge of ejaculating, it's really hard to not ejaculate. But if I ask my partner to help me out on that, then she's going to be like, nope. And I'm like, okay. And it actually becomes easy. It's the fact that you get to decide makes it.
Let me add something in here. Like this could be a revelatory thought for some people. and it shouldn't be. Like, sex is a team effort, right? Sex with another person should be a team effort. And this is an amazing opportunity to ask for support, And one thing he said was that when you're having this conversation, to say something like, oh, I want to make it about you. I would say, like, make it about your connection. Make it about the us. Make it about how you want to share really beautiful, sustained, longer sexual experiences together, because that's what most people really want. And I imagine if you're listening to this and you're a guy and you're thinking like, oh, that's terrifying. Like I would never want to talk to a woman to try to get her to be on board, be my teammate to help me prevent ejaculation, because she might not like me or she might think I'm a list of a whole bunch of stuff. I want to tell you that a couple of years ago, I asked my Instagram audience a question, and I said, hey, ladies, dear women, if there was a man who was struggling with premature ejaculation and you were dating and he came to you and he said, or you were early in dating and he came to you and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, this is something I'm working on in my life and I'm not there yet, but I'm practicing and I'm working to be able to last longer during sex because I want to have amazing sexual experiences with you. Like, how does that sound? Are you willing to partner with me on this? Like a whole, like tons of comments from women said, oh my God, that would be amazing. I would love that. That would turn me on so much to be approached with intention from a guy to have an intentional conversation about sex, because most guys don't do that. Most women have never had a man initiate an intentional conversation with them about sex. And it was a turn on for like 98% of these women said they would love it. So I just want to give that little piece of evidence and support and encouragement to have an intentional conversation around this if premature ejaculation is something you're struggling with. I struggled with it for a long time. You're not alone. Tons of people have. Normalizing it is part of the path to having the sex you want. All right, let's go.
Makes it hard to do. So you ask for your partner's help, right? And that can be profound because now you're like, oh, I can't ejaculate because she hasn't told me that it's time. And I asked her to help me with this. Like, and this is going to sound rude, but it's like having a secretary who helps you know to get to your next meeting.
Or I think it's a little bit kinky, right? It's like putting her, she's in charge now. You're actually answering her. You're submitting to her desire in a really
you can do it
intense.
definitely in a BDSM dynamic, but you can also just do it in a, like, help me out here. Like, I know that if I'm in charge, I'm going to do it. Just like, hey, help me not eat junk food. Like it's kind of a similar thing. Yeah. And then this removes pressure from the woman. And then what's going to happen is later that afternoon, you're going to be like, I'm still ready to go. Like, can we go again? And this really can revive and help relationships. So in Heavily Meditated, there's a whole chapter on other practices that help you with this. And one of them is about regulating dopamine. So the name of that chapter is called Go Spank Yourself, which makes me laugh. And it turns out yogis used to lay on spiked like beds of nails, and monks used to whip themselves, not because, self-hatred or because they're sinners, because brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. I call it bicep, and it's not this bicep. It's an acronym.
Intentional conscious.
Doing that for 1 minute a day, it can be a cold plunge. That's what biohackers do. It can be tattoos and piercings. A lot of people who are working on addiction, you find they have a lot of tats. The pain of the tat helps them not go back into the addiction. And what brief pain exposure does, and it could be your partner spanking you if that's what you're into, that allows you to have more dopamine sensitivity, which means the amount of dopamine your body makes does a better job of motivating you for everything in your life. So the monks were whipping themselves because it made it easier for them to stay in the monk state. So having better control of your dopamine is actually going to help with premature ejaculation too. So it's totally fine. You're like, hey, girlfriend, give me a spanking here. Like, that's fine. Or eat some jalapenos. It doesn't really matter.
Or excuse me, like,
let me just interrupt there and say that, yeah, I think this is a really important piece to consider too for any man who's wanting to improve his sexual abilities, especially around premature ejaculation, is to notice where are the areas in your life that you go towards instant gratification, and where can you start making switches? So instead of maybe eating cookies or candy or soda or shitty junk food or scrolling endlessly on social media or swiping endlessly on dating apps to get the hit after hit after hit, which each one of those has an immediate fall down, an immediate come down, that orients your system to seek out other immediate hits of stimulation like ejaculatory orgasm. Where can you instead orient towards experiences that have a longer-term reward versus instant gratification? Because then that's going to start to train your system to seek out the longer-term rewards instead of the quick hit of ejaculation or sugar or whatever that dopamine spike is. All right, carrying on.
oh, I lay on my bed of nails. Actually, my partner and I do occasionally do like a hot pepper challenge, and we try to maintain eye contact and presence with each other, but we like put back hot peppers.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's why
He's a lot more. He's a lot more. Yeah, we're supporting each other,
That's
right?
intense.
To your point, I'm delegating some of my responsibility to him because if he's saying like you can eat another one, I'm trusting him, even though I feel like my whole head is on fire and I'm definitely going to die. But I'm not going to die. It's really fun. But we found that we have a very strict rule. There's absolutely. It's super kinky, and there is no oral sex for at least 35 minutes. We tested it. I made him try it on me after 30 minutes. I was like, come on, I think it's fine. He was like, it's not fine. And it wasn't fine, but it wasn't bad either.
Yeah. You don't make that mistake twice for sure.
No, but yeah, your genitals can't process it the same way that your mouth can. It's a little bit different.
Go for a ride.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Obviously sexuality has been a part of your personal journey, and the men who are watching you from my channel are maybe not necessarily aware of all of the connections between sexuality and, overall life optimization, spiritually optimizing. Like, a lot of them are really focused on just like, help me perform better. So I'm curious, like for you, one of the things that comes to mind is the experience in the harnessing of creation energy, creative energy, a sexual life force energy, and putting it into things, maybe even putting it into this book. So I'm curious, like, can you paint a picture of what is possible when we move beyond just a performance mindset and move into how I'm harnessing my creation life force energy?
I have been teaching guys to use, actually, and women to use sexual energetics to channel it into creation. And the desire for sex is chi. It is life force energy itself. It's the most creative force we have as humans. And I have hundreds and hundreds of people have come to me, especially men, because the dynamics are different for men and women. But they've come to me and said, Dave, I tried not ejaculating as frequently and not looking at porn and things like that. I got a $30,000 raise. I started 2 companies. I finally found a relationship. And this is life transformation because the body has this ball of chi. And some people can even see or sense chi. And if you have a practice that feels good but depletes it.
Let me just pause there for a second. What he's talking about is the art of sexual energy transmutation, or sex transmutation, which is basically the art of turning sexual desire, turning what some people call lust. I think lust is a tricky word to use. We'll just use sexual desire, turning that into some sort of fuel that's in your body that you can use as motivation to create the life you want, or the business you want, or the creative project or family, etc. This is a concept that was really popularized in the Western world from a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He had a whole chapter in this book called The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, and said some of the most wealthy business people of all time have figured out how to do this. And so that chapter has inspired a lot of people to think about this. And he doesn't really say in the chapter exactly how to do it specifically, but in my mind, for men, like this is how you do it. It's learn the art of integrative semen retention. Learn how to turn your sexual desire into fuel that you can use to create the life you want. It's one of the most powerful and I think underrated art forms any man can use.
I don't care if that practice is Taco Bell or OnlyFans, either one, right? If you're depleting it constantly, you won't know what's in there. And it's not like I invented this. Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, which is the first kind of esoteric personal development business book. There's a whole chapter on sexual sublimation. So I got to tell you, like, owning that, if you learn to control your desire so you can ejaculate or not ejaculate, and it doesn't freaking matter, you are a master of yourself. You'll become a master in the bedroom. And more importantly, when you need to do stuff, you are glowing with power, and you can use that to create, I don't know, a giant movement worth $63 billion from an idea in your head. That's biohacking right now. And if you think I was ejaculating all the time when I was creating, companies, I've done 750 million in revenue in just one company. You think that I'm just ejaculating all the time? I couldn't do that if I was.
Brilliant. Yeah, you're
I'll just echo that with my own experience. I'm nowhere near $750 million of revenue, but what I do have is a successful career that I created through learning how to transmute my sexual energy and my desire. And specifically looking back on the time when I used to be really addicted to porn, I was watching porn every day, masturbating and ejaculating to porn every day, and feeling just down and lethargic and not motivated. I was kind of struggling with money at the time, not sure what I was doing with my life. And I remember finding some books that said, hey, maybe if you're struggling with motivation and lack of clarity, you could try not ejaculating so much. And long story short, I started to experiment with that. I started to experiment with not watching porn, not ejaculating so much. And what I noticed was that my motivation improved. My clarity improved. My overall zest for life and self-confidence improved. And my business at the time started to improve, and I started to make more money because I was more confident and I could negotiate for higher rates with the companies that I was working for. I was a photographer and filmmaker at the time in the business world. And that started snowballing. Bigger clients, better jobs, more money, more motivation, more clarity, bigger clients, better jobs, more money, more motivation, more clarity. And I started getting hired by some of the biggest companies out there, like Facebook and Google, and I guess it's Meta, and Nvidia, and like all these big things started to hire me because I had really cultivated this, and I had turned what was my sexual desire for masturbation release, for porn, into fuel to create this other thing that was now sustaining me, and ironically now allowing me to have the kinds of sex that I really wanted. So yeah, there's my little personal anecdote to echo what he's saying. There's no way I could have done that if I had just continued ejaculating every day to porn. No way.
You're in the way that you harness and rein and intentionally move all of your life force energy, which includes the very vibrant sexual energy. It's entirely up to you, right? And you can put it all into performance. You can put it all into, the way that you complain or make yourself a victim. Like you really can put your energy into that, or you can choose to let go of the shame. And that's a whole different conversation. I wish I could keep you around for longer so we could talk about that.
Let's talk about shame just for a minute here. In Heavily Meditated, there is a process called the reset process. I use this for very high net worth CEOs who come and spend 5 days with electrodes glued to their head in my neuroscience school. And that is a big deal. What we do there, this reset process lets you permanently get rid of the things that are causing shame. So I would just say, if you're dealing with shame, do the reset process, and it's going to tell you, here's the external factor and here's the internal factor. And it's a process of gratitude and forgiveness that permanently changes that.
And that's something they can guide themselves through in the book?
Absolutely. It's in the book.
Amazing. Thank you. What an incredible resource that you've created. I'm so appreciative of you for coming on this channel. And where can I send?
Cool. Sounds like they're wrapping up. So, shame. Shame is gnarly stuff. If you stop watching porn and you start learning to transmute your energy, but you haven't dealt with some of your deep sexual shame around desires or things that happen to you, like that can just like weigh you down, hold you down. And it's so important to deal with. So it sounds like there's a good opportunity to deal with that in the book. There's also some good exercises in my Orgasmic Mastery course to deal with that. And there's also just like free resources out there on the internet, like how to deal with sexual shame. I'm sure if you Google something like that, some great resource will pop up. So to close, I just want to reflect on one thing, which is why, it's the question, like, why did some people get really upset from this episode? Why did people message Caitlin and say, this is New Age bullshit, you should never have this guy on your channel, delete this video, like all of this stuff? I think, one, because he did say a couple of things. Well, he did say one thing that was just factually untrue about testosterone and prolactin. And then he also did say a thing that was that was sex negative, that was pleasure negative. And I could see how in a context, in a society where like we're struggling as a society to figure out what is even truth. Like different people have different beliefs about what truth is. Like truth as a concept seems to have gone out the window, right? So that's one piece. But also we're in a society where sex is just shamed so much and demonized. And even though we're fed sex all the time through advertising and stuff, like it's still something it's not really celebrated. It's supposed to happen behind closed doors. You shouldn't talk about it. It is bad. It's dirty, but everybody wants it. So when there's somebody else, these two people who are arguably like very impactful in the world are having a conversation, and one of them says something that could demonize pleasure. This man who is at the leading edge of shaping consciousness in some ways, at least in certain communities and subsets of people. When he says something that demonizes pleasure, like that, oof, like that does sting. I could see the potential for that to sting in some people. And what I would imagine or encourage those people to do, and I imagine if you're still here watching this or listening to this, like you agree with me, is to listen to the full context of what they're saying. Like, nowhere did they ever say sex was bad. Nowhere did they ever say pleasure was bad. Really, like at the core, if you really listen to everything they're saying have amazing sex, have fun, put your ankles by your head, meet God, get into transcendent states, like enjoy the fuck out of it. And also recognize that what we do with our sexual choices and our ejaculations matters and has an impact on our life. Yeah, let's call it there. Thank you for being here for this episode. This experiment of an episode is pretty cool. At least I enjoyed it. I'd be curious to know if you like this format. If there are any other videos out there that you'd like me to watch and kind of react to with you in real time, let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram, or you could leave a comment under this video on YouTube, or shoot me an email if you have my email. And yeah, thank you so much again for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode and hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Cheers.